Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Today we are going to go over my budget for the upcoming week of March 24th and take a look at my budget for March 17th. So wrap up that week. So we have a lot of stuff to do. Let's get into it. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my budget approach for my trip that I just completed and how that went. So let's see. This is my budget planner. We are going to go ahead and flip to March. So March 17th. Take my little bookmark off. Homemade bookmark. Love it. I am actually filming this the last day of the week for me for March 17th, which I think is the 23rd. And so I need to go in and do my highlighting, and I'll do that as I start talking. So March 17th, I don't have a ton of expenses because I went on a trip for this week. For most of the week I was gone, so I just don't have as many expenses as I normally have, thank God. But I do have some, because when I got back home, I definitely needed to go to the grocery store. I needed to buy some food. I needed to buy some things for the house, and so I do have some expenses. Now, let me say a couple of things about my trip. My trip was scheduled to last through Wednesday, and it ended up, my flight home was canceled on Wednesday, and I had to stay overnight. So I had to add an extra night, and that kind of threw my budget out of whack, if I'm going to be honest with you. Thankfully, I had emergency funds, and I was able to cover all those expenses, and I will eventually get reimbursed for the extras that I had to spend, like for the hotel and the Uber and the extra food and all of that good stuff. So I'm not really too concerned about that. It was more of just an inconvenience. And then my really beautiful, perfect plan was no longer perfect. Had to adjust, you know how that goes. And it did cause some anxiety, I won't even lie. But at the end of the day, I was able to manage that anxiety, and you know, I had a great time. Let me just say that I had a great time on my trip, other than some travel issues coming back. But when I came back, it was like midnight on Thursday. I was so starving. So the next day I bought a lot of food. You know, I had to buy things for the house. I had intended to do that on Thursday, and I would have all day to do it, and I just didn't have that opportunity. You know, it is what it is. But overall, it was a great trip. So all I'm doing now is I'm just kind of highlighting my expenses. You see my expenses start the 21st, which is basically the day that I got back. And I had to go and buy some things for the home. I still have some travel expenses here that were not a part of my travel budget. Let me see if I can adjust this focus just a little bit. Okay, give me just a minute. Okay, that's a little bit closer. All right, so I have some travel in here because I had to stay over that extra day. So these expenses were not originally a part of my travel budget, so I just made those out of my regular account because I'm going to get reimbursed for these items. So I have way more travel than I should. I shouldn't have any travel on here. And then when I got back, I went to the grocery store a couple of times. And then I just did some personal things, like signed up for a membership for one of my favorite authors. Yeah, that's basically all I did. So if I look over on my categories, everything is fine with the categories. I did go over on my grocery bill. Groceries have just skyrocketed. And starting in Q2, I'm going to have a higher grocery amount per week than I normally do, because I'm always going over now, and it's really because of the cost. So I'm gonna have to start couponing or something, because I just refuse to pay $80 every damn time I go into Publix just to pick up one bag of items. I'm just not gonna do it. So I'm gonna have to figure something out. Your girl may be losing a lot of weight, I don't know, but I'm gonna have to do something, because I'm not about to go through that. I didn't have a lot for personal because I was gone most of the week. Transportation was really included in my travel budget. Like I said, I did join a membership for one of my favorite authors. I did eat out Friday, I think, again, because I got back at like midnight on Thursday. I just didn't have time to really go and get food to eat for lunch on Friday. So I got something for lunch before going to the grocery store. And then I had a hobby expense because I bought some adult coloring books at Barnes & Noble. So that was my expenses for March 17th. Let's take a look for the upcoming week, which is March 24th, the last week of the month. I have budgeted $75 for groceries. Like I said, I'm having to increase my grocery bill. I do have $25 budgeted for personal. I need to go and highlight these, actually. So let me move this over. This is entertainment. I have $75 for entertainment. I don't even know why. What am I going to buy? I must have something on my mind to buy for entertainment. We'll figure that out. But I put $75 there. $25 for personal. I have $15 for hobby, just because I might run across something. What I'm doing, guys, the reason I'm spending so much for my hobbies is that I am replacing my markers and my crayons and my color pencils because they're worn out. I needed new ones. And so whenever I find a really good deal, I try to pick it up. So that's why I'm having I've had a hobby expense like every week, and some of it has been pretty high. That won't continue, but for now, that's what it is. Let's see. I still have a lot of gas in my car from filling up before my trip, so I don't anticipate any transportation. And I went to the grocery store, bought a lot of food, so I don't anticipate eating out. But grocery, that expense is just out of control, so that is what that is. I need to figure out what I said I was going to do for entertainment. I have no idea in this moment, but there must be something, because I usually do not have a high entertainment bill. Entertainment is when I buy things like books, music. Really, that's about all that I buy, if I'm truthful with you. So it must be, there might be a couple of books that are releasing that I might want to buy or something like that. I don't know. I'll figure it out. So some bills. I do have a lot of bills coming up. It's the end of the month. And that's when, most of my bills are due the beginning of the month or the end of the month. So primarily I have a lot of subscriptions. I also have my beginning of the month bills coming up for April. My last payday is like the 26th or 27th or something. And so I will probably be paying some of my early April bills, but that will be on my April budget because I'll end up with a big rollover for the next month. So I don't have a lot of big bills here. I just have pretty much a few small bills that always come out at the end of the month. I do need to make a business transfer because if you've been following me, you know I am taking my business income and my business expenses out of this budget. because I really need to keep those separate. I'll talk more about that when I do my Q2 setup. But if you have been following me, you know I've been working toward that for all of Q1. So that is happening. So I will no longer have my business income reflected here, which is going to be a big change for me because I've really been using that. I don't want to say I haven't been responsible with it, but that's probably true. I've just been using it as extra income when it's really my business income, and it should be funneled back into my business, because my business is not self-sustaining. So I just need to pull it out because I need to quit using it as cushion when it's not really cushion. It should be in my business. So anyway, I'm doing a business transfer this month to set myself up for April. I'm excited about that. And I'm trying to do no planning supplies. I have not been successful any week this month about not buying planning supplies for this week. But I'm trying it again. So if you didn't know, I don't know if I've ever really said this, but this line down here with these boxes, I mean, you know, because you're planners, but this is a habit tracker, guys. You can use it for any habit. I tend to use it as a no spend, right, for a week. That way I don't have to do a no spend for a whole month. I don't have to stress myself out about that. If I can do it for a week, that's a big accomplishment. So that's how I use it, but you can use it for any type of, habit planner. Okay, so haven't made any expenses yet because the week has not started. I have my bills and expenses here, and yeah, that is pretty much going to wrap up Q1. And I will be very glad when it's finished. So let's talk about my travel budget and how did that go. This was my initial travel budget. We're just going to take a few minutes and go through and put in some actuals if I have them. And then I'll talk about how I kept up with my budget while I was traveling. So hotel, that's the easiest one to do. My actual deposit was $100 instead of $200. This was travel prep. So technology, I actually didn't have to buy any technology items. I did spend $23 on some personal care items. Airport travel. So I should have put airport parking in here too. So I did not. I don't know why I didn't. I think maybe I possibly had it. I don't know. Anyway, I was expecting $40 for airport parking. So airport travel though, I only ended up spending about $75 because I flew into one airport when I arrived, and that was really far from my hotel. And so that Uber was about a $70 trip. And then, hold on a minute. Sorry, I keep trying to adjust the focus here so you can see a little bit better. That Uber was about a $75 trip, including tax. When they canceled my flight and rebooked me, I changed my flight to the closer airport to my hotel, and I actually didn't have to pay for the Uber going back to the airport for departure because my hotel had a shuttle. So I only ended up paying $75. My flight was about $430. My vacation travel, I did use Uber once while I was there. That was about a $20 trip. It was only an $8 trip, but I did give a huge tip. I gave a $10 tip. And then the airport parking, I budgeted $40, but because I had to stay over an extra night, that ended up costing me like $56 with tax. So travel food, this is airport travel food. I definitely went over because I had that extra day, it wasn't so much the extra day, because travel food is travel food, but it was, since the extra day turned into an entire day of travel instead of 1 hour of travel, I had to buy food like 3 times at the airport. You know, well, I didn't really buy breakfast, but lunch and dinner at the airport, and I did not originally budget that. Thankfully, I will get that back, but right now I'm going to write it down because it is out of my account. I had to prepay for it. So I ended up spending on lunch and dinner, I'm going to round up, approximately $50. And then on snacks, I spent a total of about another $20. So just for travel food with tax, it came up to about $70. So vacation food is the food that I buy when I'm actually on vacation. Actually, I traveled by myself and I don't really eat that much. I'm not the type to go and have like $100 steak dinner. That's just not what I typically do. And so I tended to eat breakfast in the hotel because it was free. And so I usually ate lunch, and I would buy lunch or brunch. And then because I was going to concerts, I actually picked up something in the concert, which was super expensive, but it was convenient. So, the first day, well, actually I can look and see, right? So if I go into my trip, so the first day I got there, really late, on Sunday. And so I really didn't, order any extra food. I ate in the airport. So let me go ahead. And get my calculator out. And so eating in the airport, I put that amount under, no, I actually didn't put that in travel food. So my dinner was at the airport because I knew that it would be a long time before I got to my hotel, and I didn't want to have to deal with like trying to get food at 10 or 11 o'clock. So then the next day I actually went out for lunch, and then I ate. I also ate at the airport. Not airport. I ate at the concert venue, and that was $22. So then Tuesday, I ate at the concert venue again, and that was $22. And I also went out for lunch, and that was $15.48. And then Wednesday is the day I was supposed to come home, and I didn't. So I didn't eat breakfast in the hotel because I knew I was going to go pay for brunch, right? Because my flight originally was supposed to leave in the afternoon, and so check out the hotel at 11. My whole plan was to go and get some brunch, have a nice brunch instead of a hotel breakfast. So while I was at brunch, which cost me $25, and that should have been all the food that I bought that day because I had an hour flight home, remember? So while I was at brunch, that's when I found out my flight was canceled, and I had to deal with all that mess. So that meant that evening I had to get dinner, and I was just so frustrated and tired. I ordered Uber Eats, and that was $40, and it sucked, but that's a whole different story. And so then Thursday was a super, 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 super long travel day. It was just crazy on that travel day. And so I actually put my food for this day under my travel food, and not separate, because I didn't have a separate lunch or brunch or anything like that. So my vacation food comes up to $160.38. So I budgeted $250, so I did pretty good on that. But as you can see, when I travel by myself, I don't spend a lot of money on food. It's just, food is really not my first priority when I'm traveling, if I'm honest with you. Unless because I am a little bit of a foodie. So it just depends on the nature of the trip. But when I'm going to a concert, I'm not trying to be a foodie, you know. Okay, So, I forgot where I was. Sorry, I had to pause and I totally forgot where I was. But I think I was just talking about food. So I just don't tend to spend that much. But if I'm going on, like when I went on my birthday trip, had a lot of food expenses because I am a little bit of a foodie, and that's a different type of trip. But let me go back through and take a look at the merch that I bought, because I did buy some merch for the concert. So on Monday, and I bought all my merch pretty much on one day. So I spent $137 and then $33. So it ends up being $170.90. And I didn't buy merch any other day. I did pretty good on that. So I saved there as well. Okay, and that is pretty much, I'll go through and I'll add these up. So $500 for the hotel, about $53 for my travel prep. Let's see, $450, then $525, $575, and $531 here. I think that's right. I could have used the calculator. Anyway, $240.38, $170.90, and $275. So I did pretty good on my travel budget, if I have to say so myself. Excited about that. So yeah, that is going to wrap up my travel. What I do want to point out is how I use my travel book, because I talked about this before I left and you just saw how I used it, but I'm going to do a quick flip through anyway. So this is a little book. I got it from the Dollar Tree in a pack of 2. It came with a big book and a small book, and they still sell these if you can find them. So this was a great deal for $1.25. I've gotten my money's worth out of it because I've used it twice now for 2 trips. I used it for my birthday trip, and now I've used it for my Chicago trip. So what I do in these books is I come in and I write down on the first page everything. So this is like my budget, right? This is everything I'm expecting to spend for that trip. And then I have a little notes section. If anything comes up, like one day I added 2 Cokes to the room for $6.25. I probably should come in here and add flight canceled, and I probably will. But this is where I add notes. And you see, I do a little decoration, not a lot, but just enough to make it fun. And then each day, I have a budget set for that day. So you see my budget is at the top. I just focus on my main categories like food, personal, transportation, miscellaneous, and then my expenses for that day, I keep track of them down here. And that's what I do for each day. And I just have, again, just a little sticker. This is a great place to use maybe if you get like a pack of loose stickers or something like that that you just want to use up. So I do the same for every day. Day 3, day 4. Day 4 was supposed to be a travel day, so it's completely filled out and it has a little sticker. Day 5 doesn't have a sticker because it ended up being an extra day. I really didn't have anything budgeted there. I wasn't supposed to be traveling that day, but I still kept track of my expenses. So that's how I kind of keep track and follow my budget when I'm actually traveling. So I spent time putting the budget together. I did this maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks before the travel, so that I knew what I needed to buy, because this also has a prep section. And then I started my travel savings challenges early. You see, I started this January 24th. I didn't travel until the middle of March. And so I started my vacation savings, and then I started putting money into my savings account. And probably somewhere around early February is when I did my full travel budget, because I had my hotel booked, I had my flight booked. And so then I could start planning how much money I wanted to spend, which contributed to how much money I needed to save. And then when I actually travel, I keep track of it in this little book, easy to throw into your purse, bag, or whatever. So that's how I do travel budgeting. But it was a successful trip other than the flight getting canceled and I had to stay that extra day. I had a great time and I'm very pleased about how my budget went. And so that is my budget review of March 17th and my look ahead to March 24th. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you have happy planning and let's get ready for the second quarter of 2025.